Yeah, hello there. Davy's time in Wexford is at an end and the Joe Show is over. What will we do for entertainment now?
There's this one across. Here comes Joe for the record. Joe Canning, record scorer in championship. He's put one between the uprights for a first point from play, and Joe Canning is now the all-time lead scorer in the championship records, overtaking Henry Shefflin.
Yeah, there was no show like a Joe Show, but life rolls on, I guess. We still have 2 All-Ireland hurling quarter-finals this weekend, and on top of that, we've got football finals in both Ulster and Leinster.
Kildare win possession of it. The referee blows the final whistle. The Kildare fans are absolutely delighted. They've hung on. Kildare are back in the Leinster final for the first time since 2017.
Yeah, joined by a stellar cast on the championship to preview all of that action, including Waterford hurler Stephen Bennett, 3-time All-Star Liam Dunn, and former Young Footballer of the Year Aaron Kernan. And as usual, Shane Dowling and Keith Higgins join us at the tactics board.
1 point to Wexford, no score yet. Gary Kirby gets it out near the far wing, trying to get away from Liam Dunn. Gary Kirby stays with him and the referee looks on as Liam Dunn takes it from him, comes out with the ball, and Liam Dunn sends Wexford attacking again. Smothered and beaten and swamped as the Wexford men come out, and the ball being brought out now by Liam Dunn, and Liam Dunn has made a great run. He's on the 50-yard line from the goal mouth, down along the line, tried to get the ball. Liam Dunn still slides to the ground, hand passing the ball.
Yeah, Liam Dunn must have got a nosebleed. He was so far forward in those runs. But an All-Ireland title, 3-time All-Star. He joins us now. Liam, how are you?
Not too bad at all, Damien.
I thought I'd be bringing you on to talk about the 2 hurling matches and Big Joe retiring, but all of that has been usurped by Davy Fitz leaving Wexford this morning. So before we go talking about those 2 games, Liam, could you just get a reaction from you on that news?
You better give me an hour, Damien.
You can have your own podcast.
No, yeah, well, look, I just heard the news there a few minutes ago as well, and look, I was there for 5 years before Davy took over, and I know it's a tough gig enough. But look, he came in there in 2017. We got to a Leinster final, in 2019 and won it, which was fantastic for Davy's CV. I suppose that he'll say number one, but for the players themselves that have put in a tremendous effort over a number of years, and had our opportunity in an All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary, but unfortunately John McGrath got sent off in the 46th minute, and that probably cost us the game, to be honest with you, because we didn't handle it very well after that. Tipperary with 14 men, to be fair to them, pushed on, and that really was the team's chance to really push it on, to get to a final and maybe give Kilkenny a good rattle that day. But look, it didn't happen, and I suppose, Damien, from that game, it's been free fall ever since. We've won 3 games in 3 years in the championship, and 1 game in the last 2 years, which has been hugely disappointing. But look, what you can't take away from Davy, that he got the team to win a Leinster final. But I think teams have found out the system that he plays, and the sweeper system is never going to get you to the ultimate to win that All-Ireland the way our guys have played it. So look, I suppose everybody has their time, and Davy's decided to call it a spade. So he's gone as from today now. But I think the next man coming in is going to have his hands full, to be honest with you, because trying to get these guys to play a system without having 7 defenders. I just go back to look at Padraig Fanning there when he took over Waterford after Derek, and Derek had his system for a number of years, but Padraig was sort of hung out to dry there in the first year. But in fairness to him, he introduced 4 or 5 of those young fellas now that Liam Cahill has benefited from. So the next guy is going to be a big decision for Wexford, who comes in next. But when you play 3 championship games this year and you concede 582 with 7 defenders, there's something wrong. And unfortunately, we blew up in extra time against Kilkenny, and I suppose Davy's time is up now, to be honest with you. Well, it's over now, so we just move on.
The players would have showed good fighting spirit in those games, Liam, to a fair extent. It's a big job, expectation is huge. You had 5 years in it. You're manager of All Art de Balloch now. Would you be tempted back into the hot seat?
Not for love nor money, Damien. To tell you the truth, the seat was on fire by the time I left it, and I suppose we played Cork, David, in 2016 down in Thurles there, and it was the first time we beat them in 60 years in the championship. And I remember there out on it was, I think, televised live on Sky, and coming out afterwards there, I met the county chairman afterwards there, and he was hugging me and the whole works and all in front of the cameras and all. But I was looking up in the sky there, and I could see a guillotine coming down through the clouds at the time, because I knew, and a good few other people knew, that they were wanting to get rid of me at that time anyway, so it didn't make any difference. But look, I had 5 years there. I had to come in and try and build a team, and did my best.
I remember when you came towards the tail end of your career, you mentioned to me previously that the moment you hit 30, everybody wanted to retire you as well. Is that the same thing that's going to be kind of thrown at the Tipperary players in the lead up to this game? Like, end of an era, last dance, they're all the expressions I'm hearing. I heard it before the Limerick game, but you're certainly hearing it again before the Waterford game, Liam. What sort of thoughts would you have in that encounter?
Well, I think Tipperary can look at this two ways, really. The performance that they put in for 35 minutes was flawless, really, to be honest with you. They had their plan. They sort of ambushed Limerick a little bit, I suppose, to be fair. They scored 2-16 from play in the first half, which was unbelievable score. Some of the scores were just out of draw, it was top-notch stuff, and defending was really good as well. I suppose under Liam Cahill there, Tipperary have won an All-Ireland under-21 and an All-Ireland under-20 as well, so they have players coming through, but Liam has stuck to the tried and trusted as well, and maybe he just needs to introduce, all it'll take is 2 or 3 new guys with fresh blood, fresh legs, just pushing the thing on, because the likes of Seamus Callan now and Noel McGrath and these boys, they have served Tipperary so well over the years, and the Mars, the 3 of them, Padraig, Brennan, and Ronan Marr, but they're not finished by all means, because if they can produce that against Limerick for 35 minutes, if they've regrouped and they have a forward line, Damien, that can beat anyone on their day. But I would find really that Tipperary probably start at -2 or 3 before every game now. What I mean by that is, if a 50-50 ball goes into the full back line and Cathal Barrett is contesting it with a corner forward, a 50-50 ball is generally free against them. And I just think that's a downer there. The referees, I probably would have came under a bit of pressure myself there in the latter days of my career, like that. Referees talk and all, but I just find that Cathal Barrett is an easy pick there at the moment.
Yeah, just to move quickly into the Cork-Dublin game, and I know you've got family roots in Cork as well. Have they shown you enough with their style this year to say that they can beat Dublin and maybe look further down the line after that?
I certainly think they have, Damien, to be honest with you. And, I think Kieran Kingston deserves huge credit, and in saying that, I feel desperately sorry for Matty Kenny, what happened there before the Leinster final, particularly after the fantastic win that Dublin had against Galway. But Kieran Kingston has came in, he's building a young team again. I just think that this train is back on the tracks again, their under 20s are coming good again, and they have pace all over the field, Damien. And the one thing that I would have felt over the years, with the Cork forwards, that, you would have Seamus Harnedy and Patrick Horgan and Alan Cadigan, but I would have felt that they never really played as a team enough. They were superb players, but collectively as a unit, they didn't come together. And I think Kieran Kingston has mastered that with this Cork team at the moment now, to be honest with you.
That's a good point.
They have huge pace, with even Luke Meade there now and Dara Fitzgibbon middle of the field as well. I think it's going to give them the advantage there against Dublin.
And Liam, could I ask you a final question? Offaly are playing Derry in the Christy Ring final, and that's not a landmark game for many, many people, but Offaly are trying to rebuild again, and I know you had some of your greatest battles against them. Just briefly, Liam, what would it mean for Offaly to get back on track with a win there?
I think they're well back on track, Damien, to be honest with you. I think it was a really good move for the hurling people of Offaly to get Michael Dylan in as county chairman, for starters. Michael Fennelly has been brought in, and he's brought in some really good guys with him. Not everybody in Offaly committed at the start of it under Michael, but you start getting a few wins, Damien, and you win the grades going along there, and once Offaly come back in a couple of years, because they're on the way back as well, and I can't see Derry beating them, but over the next 2 or 3 years they'll be back, get back into Leinster. Small steps will be big steps for Offaly, but once them boys come back, and I found out to my peril, you underestimate them when they're driving well. There'll be a driving force again, please God, because they're missed in Leinster as well. Yeah. And it'd be great to see him back, in the likes of Brian Whelan and Johnny Pinkton and these guys. Let's hope there's a few more of those young fellas coming up in Offaly.
Okay, thanks very much, Liam. Now, tomorrow, Tip play Waterford for a place in the last 4 of the hurling championship. Stephen Bennett will be key to their chances. Stephen has recovered from 4 hip surgeries by the age of just 20 to become one of the leading lights for the Waterford management team of Mikey Beavens and Liam Cahill.
They tell you exactly what they're thinking, and whether it's good or bad, at least you kind of respect. That's why they'll tell you you're going well, you're not going well, this is what you need to do, or you're not going to be playing. And I think even players kind of respected it very much, because if you're a sober, if you're not making it, or if you're dropped, or they'll actually tell you why. They'll tell you what you did wrong, what you need to improve on. And I think what we're learning is, like, I kind of never been involved with a crowd that if you're training well, you'll get thrown in. Like, you could go from number 36 to number 14 in one day, like, which is brilliant, because it does really keep fellas on their toes. You know that you need to be performing if you're there, and I suppose it shows that, like, the subs and the extended panel, they can get in next week, like, so it's kind of making the trainings better as well.
I know your family is obviously steeped in the game and going back to fathers and uncles and all that, but just in your own top flight experience, Stephen, has the game even changed in the past couple of seasons, do you think?
Yeah, I suppose it has, really, yeah. I suppose it's a lot of running now. It's a lot of you see a lot of teams kind of trying to retain the ball, they don't just kind of lump puckouts down anymore. You're seeing a lot of teams are kind of trying to play the same way. They're kind of deep forwards. They're kind of defending together and attacking together, so I think a lot of teams, there's not much difference in how teams are trying to play. It's just who's kind of implementing it a bit better wins the games,
Yeah, you said a lot of running, and there certainly is. With the resilience you showed at underage, Stephen, to come back from, like, I think you had 4 operations on your hip before you were 20, that would finish off many people. I'm sure you've been sick of being asked about it at this stage, but just in terms of how hard you've worked to get over that, does it ever even come into your head now?
Not really, no. I'm kind of just enjoying it now, I suppose. Like, I'm 25, nearly 26, but it's actually my 8th year on the team. So you're kind of thinking, hang on now, it's kind of just all of a shot there. You're like, how many years have you left, So I'm just, first few years, 4 operations. Frustrating few years, kind of wasn't making the team. Then even when I came back, kind of couldn't get in. So, no, just really enjoying it now at the moment, and kind of just playing away. Since the boys came in, even since Bora came in fairness, I started I've played every game since. So, like, you can't beat playing matches. When you're playing, you're kind of confident anyway, and fairness to the boys, they'd stick with you if you have a bad game or two. So, no, I'm just kind of forgetting about it now and trying to keep up with the lads as best as I can.
Stephen Bennett, he should score this, no doubt about it, and that should see Waterford over the line.
9 points for Stephen Bennett this afternoon. That is his 9th, frees and 65s, and 1 from open play as well.
Okay, time for the tactics board now with Keith and Shane. First of all, Keith, good luck to you tomorrow in the Nicky Rackard final against Tyrone. Nice to get back to Croke Park, Keith. What does it mean to you to get back with the hurlers?
Yeah, look, it's great to get back. I suppose, like every team at the start of the year, when you set out, your goals, I suppose, for us getting back to Croke Park, as a group after last year, disappointment was the main one. But yeah, look, for me personally, it's nice to be there. Like I said, that's where you want to be playing, and that's where you want to be getting the chances to play. So, look, for the hurlers in Mayo, Tyrone, it's a good spot to be in. And yeah, looking forward to it. And hopefully it'll go our way.
Yeah, big game for both of you, and Tyrone have CJ McGorty playing as well, so we'll keep an eye on that, Keith, and good luck. Shane, breaking news, I suppose, as we record this show, Davy Fitz is gone from Wexford after 5 years in charge. Just your initial reaction to that?
Yeah, I suppose breaking news is right, but I suppose if we're all being honest about it, Damien, I would have expected that. He was there for 5 years. They obviously had, in 2019, winning the Leinster Championship was the biggest highlight for them, but the last 2 years has been extremely disappointing. I mean, 2 bad losses to Clare, and his time was probably up down there, and you look at the style of play that they played down there, and there was maybe a lot of people giving out whether it was right or wrong, but either way they probably need someone new to freshen it up and try to get going again, because the funny thing is, I certainly believe they have the players good enough to do better than what they've been doing, and obviously the Wexford County Board think the same, and I'm sure, listen, they had a huge time for Davy, and Davy's done a great job down there and rejuvenated Wexford really in a way, but sometimes I suppose your time is up.
Yeah, maybe a natural progression. Keith, just a word then on a near neighbour of yours, Joe Canning, and his decision to leave the scene midweek. Would you have come across him much, Keith, just maybe at events over the years, and how would you rate him as the hurler that he is?
Yeah, I would have met him a few times, Damien, not a huge amount. I suppose I wouldn't have ever got to know him personally or anything like that, but look, I don't think he can kind of overstate the impact he's had on Galway hurling over the last 10 or 12, 13 years. Look, he's been phenomenal from the year he burst onto the scene. For me, I suppose that one memory of the goal he got against Jim Sullivan down at Cork, against Cork down Thurles, 2008, it was fantastic for a young guy coming in, So, look, everyone is aware of, I suppose, the scoring ability that Joe brings on his day. But look, I think and Shane might know this a bit better, but I'd imagine if you're an opposition team and you're going out to play Galway, one of the first things you're doing is seeing how you can kind of keep Joe Canning quiet and kind of nullify his influence on the game. I think he's the type of player that when he's there, all the other players around him play a bit better and a bit more confidence. So he's going to be a huge loss to Galway. I think it's kind of been well talked about the last couple of days. They probably need a bit of rebuilding going on there over the next year or two. But look, he's been phenomenal. I think it's the hurling championship next year is going to be kind of a lesser place without Joe Canning in it.
Yeah, 100%. Shane, so much action then. Life goes on, Davey's gone, Joe's gone, but the season rolls on, and so much action this weekend. 2 All-Ireland Senior Hurling quarter-finals. I'll just start with possibly the bigger one in many people's eyes, Tipperary versus Waterford. I just saw Waterford running at Galway the last time, and I'm wondering if they employ the same tactics again will be successful. How would you frame this game, Shane, just in regards to both counties?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Damien. I thought Waterford were awesome the last day. I mean, the pace, the energy that they showed, the way they ran at the way they ran at the Galway defence was really impressive. And I suppose I'd worry from a Tipperary's perspective if they do the same this weekend, and if they're able to bring the same energy that they had last weekend. I mean, obviously the conditions last week were kind of tough, or were very tough considering the heat. So obviously they're not going to be as bad this weekend. So if they're able to bring the same, I would worry from a Tipperary perspective. I would have had a huge time for Waterford the way they hurled under Liam Cahill last year. Obviously disappointing with their opening 2 games this year, but they really came back to the form that they showed last year. From a Tipperary perspective, I suppose, the big talk is, will they be able to get over what Limerick did to them in the second half? And the way I look at it, I suppose, is that if they start well and we're able to get a lead and build a bit of confidence and momentum, they could be a hard team to stop. But if Waterford start as quickly as they did the last day and can plant that seed of doubt in Tipperary, will their year just filter out, considering that all the talk that's going on about Liam Sheedy not bringing in the youth and the age of their team, and that's gone on for so long now, and there's so much spoken about that. That has to seep into players' minds, and if Waterford were able to get a lead and push on and show that energy, you just wonder will Tipperary be able to bring that back, and considering what happened the last day.
Shane, I'd just like to check and see what your thoughts on this would be. If you're a team that's playing Waterford this weekend, and we've seen how good Jamie Barron and Peter Hogan were in the middle of the field the last, and the energy and the amount of ball that they got on, would you be going out to put somebody on them, or would it be just a case of getting their half-forward line back to try and crowd out the midfield?
Well, I was talking to a very well-known Tipperary man last night, actually, and his comment to me was that, if Liam Sheedy was to put out 3 or 4 or 5 of the younger lads and get bait, so be it, at least it would be a start. And he was kind of saying that nobody in Tipperary would have an issue with Tipperary losing if there was a few younger players, brought in. We saw the last day, Paddy Cadell, Mark Keogh coming on, But if they were to go with the same team, Nolan McGrath in the middle of the field, and Brendan Maher in the half-back line, some of the greatest hurlers that will ever play for Tipperary, and have ever played for Tipperary. But you just wonder with, exactly as you said there, Keith, with the Jamie Barnes and the Peter Hogan and the pace they have, I just don't know, will the players that are there be able to keep up with them, and they're definitely going to have to try to get their half-forward line back. But I think I'm going to, of all the teams this weekend, the one team that's going to be fierce interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing, is the team selection that Liam Sheedy picks. Is he going to stick with what he went with all year, or does he change eventually? So it's going to be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, it'll be late in the day to change. Keith, I'm just going to come to you on Cork versus Dublin. On paper, Cork would look to be strong favourites. Dublin were riddled with COVID cases and close contacts and COVID issues on the morning of the Leinster final. They might have a better shot at a more settled team this time around, Keith.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Look, I think when you see, if they get the likes of Owen O'Donnell, Cian O'Callaghan, these guys back, there'd be a big boost to them. But I suppose, looking at them in the Leinster final against Kilkenny, even without those guys, while they were winning up till just before half time, you never really felt like they were going to push on and really caused Kilkenny any problems. On the other side, then you look at Cork. I mean, again, Shane might know a bit better, but I think any time looking from the outside, when you see Cork team get a bit of momentum, get a bit of confidence, that's kind of when they're at the most dangerous. And as we mentioned there about Tip bringing in some young guys, Cork have done that this year, and it kind of seems to be paying dividends for them. Now, I think they still need to get that balance right between the kind of the short game they're trying to play and kind of playing a bit more traditional. But look, like you said there, on paper it'll be Cork for me, but at the same time I don't think they'll have it all their own way, to be honest.
Okay, and Keith, I just want you to throw an eye on the Leinster final. We've got Aaron Kernan coming on to talk about Ulster in a moment, but I might just get you to talk me through the Leinster final.
Yeah, I suppose, look, anytime you're kind of talking about a game with Dublin involved, it's kind of hard to see past them, particularly in Leinster. I suppose the way it's been over the last number of years. But I think we talked on this show the last time before they played Meath, and I couldn't see how Meath were going to bridge that gap. And as it turned out, they kind of put in a big second half performance and nearly made me eat my words a bit. But at the same time, I think just Dublin in the first half, they looked more like themselves. And if you're looking at Kildare over the last number of games, 2 points against, beat Westmeath by, against, struggle a bit against Offaly. I know they have some good forwards there, like Neil Flynn, Daniel Flynn, are kind of playing really well. Will cause Dublin some problems, but at the same time, even with the names Dublin are missing, I just don't see how Kildare are really going to get too close to them, to be honest. I think Dublin will just go about their business as usual. You'd be hoping it's going to be a bit more competitive than other years, but at the same time, you just can't see Kildare really causing Dublin any problems, to be honest.
Shane Dowling, Keith Higgins, thanks so much for the chat. Okay, now Aaron Kernan was one of the most exciting players to watch play Gaelic football. He joins us now to preview the Ulster football final. Aaron, a big day for Monaghan and a new look Tyrone. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, to be fair, I think the way the Ulster Championship has gone this past few weeks, Damien, it's another exciting weekend ahead. I think a lot of the noise coming out so far seems to be people thinking that Tyrone might comfortably win this one, but I definitely don't see it being like that there. We have, granted, there's plenty of changes and some new fresh faces in the Monaghan team this past 2 years that Banty has brought in, but we still have a lot of very experienced campaigners here who have been on the block for a long time, who have 2 Ulster medals in the back pocket, and I'm very hopeful that we'll get another real good encounter.
They're showing, Monaghan that is, Aaron, they're showing serious fighting spirit on a number of occasions in both league and championship, and they've shown a considerable goal threat also.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm sort of a wee bit surprised about in terms of the narrative around the game, that people seem to be forgetting that about Monaghan. To one thing about this group, or the county themselves, is they're so hard to put away. They may be coming up against teams possibly with better players, bigger reputations, bigger populations or whatever, but for 10 or 12 years now, they have been extremely hard to put away, very, very dogged and very resilient. And I don't expect anything different. I think one of the aspects maybe that has gone a wee bit unnoticed is that Banty done unbelievable work in his first term as manager. He took them from your Division 3 and 4 to be competing in Division 1s. He took them to 2 Ulster finals, but they didn't get across the line then. And a lot of those boys who are the more experienced players in his panel at the minute would have been boys that he would have introduced fresh new blood on the scene at that stage. And they'll be mad keen to try and deliver an Ulster title for him. I know they did win 2, but that was with Malachy O'Rourke. So this is Banty's second stint, and I would have thought that that'll be something that'll be in the minds of his experienced campaigners come Saturday evening. Yeah,
he did a fine job with the minors as well, Aaron. And just Liam Dunn was on the show earlier chatting about the next man in for Wexford and having to deal with, I suppose, players who've been systemised, by want of a better description. Mickey Hart was in the hot seat in Tyrone quite a long time. Aaron, are you impressed with the work that Brian Dooher and Fergal Logan have done to reach a provincial final so soon after that change came about?
Well, I suppose we always knew that the talent was there. I think the frustration was that as neutrals, we probably always felt that we weren't seeing the best. We would have felt that there was a different sort of format that Tyrone could have been, or maybe they could have mixed it up a bit better than what they have done. They probably become way too predictable this past 8 to 10 years. But I'm not overly surprised, for the simple reason is that the core group of their team now are the group that won the Under-21 All-Ireland under the leadership of Brian Dooher and Fergal Logan. And to be fair, sometimes there's a settling in period if it's a new manager, but the vast majority of this group would have already played under those guys. They would have known the style of football they wanted to play. They would have known how they managed, how they dealt with their players. So it seems like it has flowed fairly seamless. Obviously, there was that major hiccup in Killarney, but they seem to have very much parked that, put it down as a one-off, And you would have to say they've been very impressive to date in Championship and how they've seen off both Cavan and Donegal.
I don't know whether to call Darren McCurry's story a comeback story. It was certainly one of resilience, Aaron. What are your thoughts on the impact he's had in the last few weeks, I guess?
It's been remarkable. But to be fair, getting the ball and putting it over the bar, I don't believe was ever really in doubt in terms of the ability that he had. And he always has that sort of cockiness or the bit of swagger about him. But to be honest with you, I just felt that again, looking from the outside in, that would have been an issue. I felt that they weren't getting the best out of him, and it wasn't just him. There's other players who are maybe similar in stature.
Sparky Bradley would have been one, Aaron, for a long time too.
You have Mark Bradley, you have Lee Brennan, you have Ronan O'Neill, similar type players. Yeah. They're not the biggest players in the world, but they can put the ball over the bar. So you have to find a system, you have to find the format that obviously suits the team but gets the best out of what you have. So in terms of those four guys, yes, they might be fairly similar, but none of them flourished, or none of them have really fulfilled the potential at county football. For me, that's probably been disappointing, in terms of a lot of them, a county career nearly has passed them by, for a large bulk it did. And to be fair to Darren, like he is playing with serious confidence. And to me, that's a management that have come in and said, Darren, I believe you're good enough. I know what your strengths are. I know maybe tracking back or beating people in foot races mightn't be the strengths of your game, but your strengths are winning the ball 30, 35 metres out, taking a man on, showing a dummy or tapping it over the bar, right hand, left foot. And I think we've seen, and particularly in the Cavan game, he was winning ball in front. He was winning the ball over his head. He was winning the ball, taking on two men and shooting from, you might say, ridiculous angles. But that confidence only comes whenever managers actually believe in you and deep down believe in you. Because if they don't, you're always looking to the sideline. You're always waiting to be hooked or the first man off. So that's been a huge plus for Tyrone.
Just before we do wrap up, am I sensing from you that you might feel that the combined team spirit and unity and settlement of the Monaghan team might trump a Tyrone team that's not fully there yet?
I don't. I'm going to give Tyrone a close vote that they'll get across the line, but I think that it wouldn't surprise me when either way, but I think this Monaghan team will make it a very, very difficult day.
I read the room wrong. Thanks very much, Aaron Kernan.
Not about it. Anything, Dave.
Well, that's it for this week's show, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. The programme was produced by John Farrell. Dave Gibson was on sound. For myself, Damien Lawler, stay safe and we'll chat again next week.